Alrighty, and I'm going to share my screen. All right, cool. Let's see. Oh, that didn't work like I wanted it to. Hmm. Alrighty. So, hey everyone. My name is Kirsten Cook. I am actually a recent graduate. I graduated in June, and I've been with Adventure Programs for like 4 years now. Um, and I just wanted to help them get started with online programming for fall because I kind of enjoy it a lot, and I don't know, I like teaching. It's fun. So, what do I have for you today? I studied environmental studies while at school, and I kind of have a passion for botany, and I'm a naturalist. Um, so I'm hoping to kind of share that with you all. But I would like to start off by acknowledging that we are fortunate to be able to study and work on the unceded traditional and ancestral territory of the Chumash people. I hope that this presentation can do justice to the tradition of sharing knowledge about how to protect the land, while also acknowledging that the original inhabitants of the land were irrevocably harmed by those who arrived on their territory with no thought but to claim it for themselves. I realize that these are just words, but I do hope that these words can create awareness and be a step towards future change. Okay, so today's workshop is going to focus on identifying some rare and endangered species that can be found in the Santa Barbara area. I'll also kind of talk about what rare and endangered mean and how we classify species under those titles. Um, and I also kind of want to talk about how we can reduce our impact, how they became endangered, what we can do to help them survive. Some of these species will be relevant to places outside of California, outside of Santa Barbara area, but most of them are actually pretty like local. Some of them are endemic. So yeah, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can share that in the chat, or if I invite questions, you can turn your mic off, or on, I'm sorry. You can turn your mic on and share out loud. All right, so the first term I have here for you is rare species. A rare species is a group of organisms that are very uncommon, scarce, or infrequently encountered. This is different from the term endangered species, which is an animal, plant, or other group of living organisms that is on the verge of going extinct. So endangered and rare species are not mutually exclusive labels, but many endangered species are rare and becoming more and more rare as they near extinction. There are different levels that the International Union for Conservation of Nature uses to list species. Um, they have a list called the Red List of threatened species, and this list kind of has basic information on them, if they know the population, the number of populations, or how many animals are in the population, or how they're threatened, what threatens them, if there's conservation efforts out there that exist for them. This list is not comprehensive. The more locally you get, like the smaller the population size of a species, the less likely you are to find it on that international list. I learned that today as I was searching for endemic species to add to my presentation, and there were actually a good number of like local plants that are only found in like one small geographic region of Santa Barbara County. They're not on that international list. Hopefully one day they'll get on there. But yeah, so there's basically like 9 levels, although 2 of those levels are basically they don't have enough information about the species to actually put them on a level. And so those 2 are the not evaluated or the data deficient. And that's usually because they are very rare or elusive, or they're found only in hard to find places. But the problem with not knowing about these species is that they could be not at all threatened, or they could be on the verge of extinct, or even already extinct, because it takes like decades to decide that, okay, this species has not been seen in this long, there's no way it's still alive. The next levels are least concern and near threatened. These categories are not actually endangered yet. This does not mean that they will not eventually fall under a worse category, but at the moment they are widespread and abundant enough to not be endangered. This kind of group of animals honestly is typically domesticated animals, humans, and wild species like pigeons that really like to live in cities and places like that because they can thrive easily in the world that exists right now. The next or the last levels, the next 3 levels, vulnerable, endangered, and critically endangered species are within the threatened category, and they're the ones that we should be worrying about right now. The definitions of these 3 categories are based on 5 criteria: population reduction rate, geographic range, population size, population restrictions, and probability of extinction. These are the species we're usually focusing our restoration and conservation efforts on because they're threatened, but they haven't reached the point where they're pretty much dead yet. Whereas the last 2 categories, extinct in the wild and extinct, that's pretty much the end of the line for that species. Although species that are extinct in the wild, they do still exist, usually in zoos or in home environments, like personal zoos. I don't know the word for that. Menageries, I guess. Technically, it's not completely hopeless for these species, but the likelihood of a restoration effort being able to restore an entire population to the wild is low. And they're most likely in the near future going to pass into the extinct category, which takes like many years of studies and looking for the species to confirm it is in fact completely dead. There's no living creatures left. Moving on to my next slide I have here for you. Why are some species endangered? This is kind of a graph that shows by percentage, I guess, although there's no percentages on it, what is causing the main issues for species. And urbanization, which is kind of like development and building and roads and all that, which cause habitat loss, that's your biggest problem. Next biggest is competition with introduced species. And introduced species, unfortunately, do include cats and dogs and often are dominated by cats and dogs. So our pets are one of the biggest causes of species loss and extinction of animals, other species, excuse me. Then you get smaller and smaller percentages. You've got controlled pests, naturally, or the population or the species is naturally rare. So it's an endemic species that only has 5 or 10,000, or maybe in the hundreds, like population size. And then everything past exploitation, so you know, hunting, fishing, stuff like that. Pesticides are pretty bad, although clearly not one of the biggest killers. Yeah, and something I had to add here, many scientists believe that the planet has entered into a 6th mass extinction event, also known as human-caused extinction, like Anthropocene extinction event. And basically a mass extinction event is a period of time in which at least 75% of species go extinct within a geologically short period of time. So I don't believe we've hit 75% yet. I was trying to find more data on that, but it is possible that we have hit that mark, in which case more than just many scientists probably believe we've entered a mass extinction event. But before I get into the actual species, this is my last slide for you, kind of ideas for how you can help threatened species. I would recommend go and learn about them by visiting and volunteering at wildlife preserves. Right now, you guys are doing that first step. You're learning about them and trying to, like, you're taking a good step in the right direction. My second one is practice leave no trace principles in your everyday life. You know, reduce your water usage, recycle, keep trash in closed bins, don't feed the animals, keep your pets on leash. Plant native plants in your yard to provide food and shelter for local creatures. And while you're doing that, avoid herbicides and pesticides, which harm many more species than you expect, and also taint water supplies, which have varying effects down the line. Shop sustainably, buy sustainable products that don't have single-use packaging, and avoid products that use materials from threatened and endangered species or that come from habitats where they live. And finally, you know, don't harass animals or destroy native ecosystems, which, you know, most people don't do, but got to put that on the list. So that was a quick overview of threatened species. Did anyone have any questions before I gave you some examples of local rare and endangered species? You can turn your mic on, share in the chat, whatever you want. Thanks, Emily. All right, cool. I will keep going then. All right, so another participation for you all. Please share by annotating and the names of any endangered species you know. You can do common name or scientific name if that's what you want. Basically, to annotate, you're going to go to the top of your page. There'll be a little green bar that says Kirsten is sharing her screen, and then press the arrow next to the more button. At the bottom of that, you can press annotate, and then you can use a text box and type on directly onto the screen that I'm sharing with you, and everyone should be able to see it. Yeah, so someone shared panda. I like that. California condor, that's a really good one. Got a second California condor. Some types of tiger. Possibly all types of tiger are endangered or have gone extinct. Rhinos, definitely. And you know any local ones to California? I don't know how many people here are in California right now. Oh, the snowy plover, that's a great one. Pangolins, elephants, red-legged frog, awesome. Some of these I've got in my presentation, not the pandas and rhinos and tigers, but definitely the California ones. Blue whale. I don't actually know about the blue whale. I believe it. I don't know much about marine bio, unfortunately. But someone put something on there, but I can't read it. Vaquita, albatross. Yeah, I don't know that it might still be endangered. Actually, no, wait, albatross is, but I don't think it's local to California. To our part of California. Tiger salamander, nice one. Cool. I'm gonna keep going. Turtle. I'm sure there are some kinds of turtles that are endangered. All right, thanks guys. I'm gonna clear this. If I can figure out where the clearing button is. Clear all drawings. Alrighty. Thank you very much. So we're gonna start off with some local rare and endangered species, obviously. Someone said snowy plover, and yeah, this is one of our favorite local near threatened species. They have a pretty broad range scattered across the Americas, North America, South America, Central America, with population numbers in about like 20,000, which really isn't that many, but they are pretty small critters. Their biggest threats are human development, fishing, harvesting, recreation, water usage, non-native species, human waste, and droughts. Unfortunately, their populations are decreasing, but if you've ever walked along the beaches near Isla Vista, you should keep an eye out for the signs and fences marking off their protected breeding grounds, or have a chat with one of the docents who patrols those beaches. They're super nice. do your part to protect these cute little critters by keeping pets on leashes, leaving eggs if you do find them, because they don't usually nest in nests. They just kind of lay their eggs on the sand, and keeping out of marked off areas to protect their nests. The California condor, which I think a couple people mentioned, that one's critically endangered. So that's up there in it's nearing extinction. They only have 44 individuals living in the wild. I think that number might be higher now. I might have read an older article on that one. Their range is from coastal to central northern Baja California. I don't know if that made any sense, but Baja California, central coastal part of that, all the way up to the Canadian border. And their biggest threats are hunting and trapping, energy production, utility lines, diseases, and agricultural waste. Back in the day, before DDT was made illegal, that was one of the biggest causes of population decline. It would get into the food supplies, and their eggs would not be strong enough to survive to hatching, and so the babies would die before they were born. But thankfully, due to conservation efforts, their populations are increasing. I actually just saw some wherever I was recently, maybe in Arizona. I don't know. Pretty cool. To help protect these giant raptors, donate to the cause, avoid using lead bullets when hunting, and avoid pesticides and other chemicals. Rod shared about the sixth mass extinction event. Check out a Netflix documentary. Thank you for sharing that. Our next unfortunate critter is the California red-legged frog. It is a vulnerable species with decreasing populations throughout California. Any number of issues endanger them, including farming, development, forestry, roads, water usage, oil and gas activities, invasive species, and various types of pollution, especially water pollution. To protect them, protect their habitats, support wetland restoration projects, and keep waterways clean. Like many amphibians, they are very, very, very sensitive to any sorts of pollution that are in the air or water because their skin is super permeable. And even like touching them with your hands, the oils on your hands can be pretty harmful. So keep that in mind. Someone mentioned the California tiger salamander. I got that one right here. I believe there is another tiger salamander in the rest of the United States, and I don't think that one's endangered, although I'm not certain. But these guys are considered vulnerable with decreasing populations scattered throughout California. Any number of issues endanger them as well, pretty much the same ones as affect the California red-legged frog because they're both amphibians. You know, development, forestry, roads, oil and gas activities, invasive species, and pollution. To protect them, support wetland restoration projects, and keep our waterways clean. Yeah, all right. So I have a couple plants for you too. Most of the plants that are in danger in California are due to their rarity. They are endemic to a very small area of California, and so any sort of development projects can just wipe out a whole population. So the Lompoc yerba santa is endemic to Lompoc, California, and it is critically endangered. The biggest threats to this species are increasing fire regimes, are oil and gas activities, are invasive species, and forestry activities. To protect them, follow fire restrictions and support environmental groups that call for restrictions on harmful industries. Let's see what we got. The next one I got is La Graciosa Thistle. It's a threatened species that I think is local to Santa Barbara County up to what's the next county up? I don't remember, but that one. Development and urbanization threaten this endemic species with habitat loss. Most of the remaining populations of this plant are on private land, so really the best way to protect these species are to keep the land in private hands and not sell it off to developers, which, you know, on a personal level, we can't really do that, but we want to support private landowners and not, you know, someone building a big shopping center on this land. This next slide I have for you is kind of just a couple pictures of a couple species of a list of, you know, hundreds of species that are on the endangered or threatened lists. We've got a local lupin, we've got a local snail, which kind of looks like any snail, but it is an endemic species, that one. A lizard, a fish, some sort of shrimp, you know, every single kind of organism has the potential to be threatened. Anything from the smallest bacterium to the biggest mammal, you know, I mean, everything can be threatened. But trying to be a little bit more positive, we do have some local conservation success stories that I thought I'd share because they kind of make me happy and they give hope, I think, for all these other species. The bald eagle is now of least concern. It's listed as least concern, but it was considered endangered back before the 60s when populations had reduced to only about 400 mating pairs, and they mate for life, so they can't, you know, if one loses their partner, they're not going to go find a new partner. So that line, the genetic line, ends there. So their population, again, another bird whose population declined due to DDT, excuse me. But thanks to an excellent 40-year-long conservation plan and a good execution of it, they are currently in the least concern category, with mating pairs reestablished in all 50 states. Their range is over most of North America, and our own Santa Cruz Island, right off the coast of Santa Barbara, was used as a nursery for reintroducing bald eagle populations into the wild, which is pretty cool. Another good story we got here is the Santa Cruz Island fox. They are endemic to the Channel Islands. Each island has its own kind of genetic population, but they are the same species technically. They're found nowhere else on Earth except those, 5 islands, and they were saved from near extinction by captive breeding and conservation efforts on the islands. Those conservation efforts involved removal of their invasive predator species, the golden eagle, the reintroduction of bald eagles, and the eradication of feral pigs. With upwards of 4,000 individuals, these populations have stabilized at near threatened, although they are still in danger from invasive species and disease, as well as genetic issues related to the bottleneck of the genetic pool that occurs when the species, I think there were like 40 something of them left, and so that very small breeding pool causes all of the subsequent generations to have very similar genes, which can be dangerous if they get a disease or something that wipes them all out. And my third conservation success story right here, the brown pelican, I actually until today thought that they were still super endangered, but apparently they are listed as least concern. They were terribly threatened by DDT, just like the bald eagle and the condor, but they were saved from near extinction by the banning of DDT. I don't think any other conservation effort was done, or at least not much. That just allowed their populations to bounce back very quickly. Yeah, and honestly, if you go out to the ocean, pretty much anywhere in California, you can see brown pelicans flying in like little V patterns almost every day. So that's a pretty good one. Back to, I guess, a kind of not so happy side of the whole rare endangered species presentation, talking about already extinct species. I was having a little bit of trouble like finding some to list for you guys, but what I did end up finding was a couple mammals that have gone extinct in the last 100 years due to, I believe, overhunting. And of course, there are many other species that have gone extinct since humans arrived in California, and many other types of species. So not just mammals. I mean, there's insects and reptiles and amphibians and everything, right? But these are just some mammals that I was able to find for you guys. The California grizzly bear went extinct in 1902. It was hunted to extinction. Same with the Mexican grizzly bear, which had populations up into Southern California. That was 1964. The Merriam's elk extinct in 1906 from overhunting, and the California kit fox locally extinct by 1903. I believe there's another genetic group of this species somewhere else in California, up further north. Okay, thanks, Rod. Did anyone have any questions? It's pretty much what I've got for you today. I don't know. Anyone? I don't know. My next workshop is next Friday. I do this every week. Next week will be on Chumash ethnobotany, which are like local plants that the indigenous people of our area use. I'm gonna turn off the recording.